about earlier. So I'm staying at the Le Méridien, which is not too far away, 5 minutes walk. And in the lobby, on the second floor, actually in the lobby area, there's sort of a mini exhibition. And the title of the exhibition is, mini one was the memory of the elementary school. And on there you have, these things, right? These chairs and tables. Your very traditional classroom, right? Remember, it's called the memory of the elementary school, right? This is what primary school, elementary school used to look like. And then I went to Google, and I went to Google classroom, right? I went to look at what are pictures of classroom look like, and you look at all these results, they're pretty much all the same, right? Maybe one with the exception here, right, which is organized differently, but most of them are organized with rows and rows of tables and chairs, right? Just like this one. Not too dissimilar. So, which got me thinking about, why do we still, operate in the past? Earlier you heard Ken talk about the future of higher education. And I always think of, when we think of the goal of education, what is the goal of education? Is it to get a paper degree? Right? Is it to prepare our kids for their future? And if you look at the second one, right, preparing our kids for the future, then how do we prepare them for that future? I like to focus on these three areas, and I'll give a couple of examples on why I think these are the three areas I'm going to talk about today. Empowering Generation Z. So let's start with this. Right, Generation Z is the generation of students that are in most of our schools today. Right, and what are some of the typical characteristics of Generation Z? So I want to start off with a video, actually, before I get into that. I want to start off with a video, that Google made, but looking at why questions are more important than answers. So let me show this video, and then I'll give you we'll talk about some of the characteristics of Generation Z.
Imagine the awesomest thing you can, like an automatic grilled cheese maker, or a time machine, or a time machine with an automatic grilled cheese maker. Now imagine who's going to invent it. Him? Glasses here? Whoever they are? Or maybe her? But how do kids like these become the types of people that do things like this? Maybe we should ask this guy.
Knowledge is heavy. Sometimes it's a limit to have new ideas. That's the problem with the old schooling, because they were teaching answers. I believe questions are probably more important today than the answers.
Erno's cube is a question waiting to be answered. And when the right person finds the right question, something amazing happens. They start seeing the world as it truly is. Not a place to be memorized, but a place to be figured out, flipped, turned, twisted, and ultimately made better forever. Today, she may be an octopus, but help kids like her fall in love with problem solving, and they will embark on journeys to become scientists, artists, engineers, designers, inventors, or something no one's ever been before, but you can bet we're going to need. That's why moments like this, go, and this, and this, and especially this, are so important. Because there are companies to found, planets to walk on, time machines to invent, a future to be made amazing. We may not know what it's going to look like, but we know who's going to do it.
So questions are more important than answers, right? This is the Generation Z, or Z if you're American. This is the generation that's in our schools. Now, what are some of the characteristics of Generation Z? Right, the average attention span of a Generation Z student is less than the time it took me to finish that sentence. 8 seconds. 8 seconds, right? So you have a lot of kids now, in class that are constantly distracted, constantly thinking about other things. By the time they're focused on one thing, they're already moved on to another idea in their mind. They spend about 10 hours a day on the internet on average, right? That represents about 60% of the time they're awake. So more often than not, they are on their devices, they're connected, and they're looking for information, right? Or they're connecting with other people. This digital native generation, right? We call them the digital natives because they're born in this generation where they just expect technology to work. Think about this. In the past, you used to go onto the internet to look for something, right? You may go on Google or Yahoo or whatever search engine. You're going online to look for information. And now that's changed. Now you also go online, the generations that they go online to manage relationships, right? They're on social media, they're connecting with other users, there are multiple platforms, and they're spending a lot of time on those platforms. So we look at this as sort of a future of billions connected, right? More and more of the world are getting connected, but it's still a big challenge. There's about 7 billion people on Earth today, but only about 2 billion people have access to the internet. So when you think about access to information and access to technology, the large majority of the world still have little or no access to the internet. So why do we care? Why we're all, in this room, we're all involved in education, right? We're all educators. We're all in some role play our part in education. And education has that ability to make that all-inclusive future for all of us, right? For the future generation where everyone can take part. I like to call this concept the CS plus X. So computer science, CS, or computational science, when you add that to any discipline, any industry, it gives you a whole different approach to doing things. I'll give you a couple of examples here, right? When you look at, CS, computer science plus physics, computer science plus biology, computer science plus retail, computer science plus music, fitness, all of these new disrupted technologies on the right there didn't exist, 5-10 years ago. Right? We call this, computational thinking is important because it introduces a different way of analyzing problems, of interpreting algorithms. And this is the stuff that's really important, I think, in my opinion, in education, right? Preparing them for their future. The sharing economy, which is one of my favorite things to always talk about, this is, you can probably come out in the last 5 years or so. I read a very good Medium article, that's the link at the bottom if you want to read it, called Access versus Ownership. How important is it for you to own something versus being able to access it? Right? How important is it for you to own something versus being able to access it? So I'll give you, again, more examples. I love examples here. Anybody know what these things are? CDs, right? Compact discs. And if you remember, back in the day, I used to buy CDs just for one song that you wanna get on that CD. Companies like Spotify, right? 30 million songs now for I think $9.99 a month or $19.99 a month, right? 30 million songs that you can get access to on one device. All the devices you have in your pockets, you can now access 30 million songs. How many CDs is that? A lot of CDs. VHS, going even further back. I went to a primary school and I showed these two things, and some of the kids had no idea what these things was. It's amazing. But the videotape, video cassette. YouTube. Right, YouTube is now the main video platform that you have online. Again, another new Web 2.0 technology that's disrupted a traditional industry. YouTube is amazing. You think of, Google acquired YouTube in 2006, and now, about 10 years later, every 60 seconds that passes by, 400 hours of video are being uploaded to YouTube. Let me say that again, because we've got to understand the scale of this. Every minute that we sit here, there's 400 hours of video being uploaded to YouTube. It's a lot of content, right? So even if we spend the rest of our lives just watching YouTube, we won't be able to catch up with everything that's on YouTube. Books. You know, when Amazon came out with the Kindle, you know, a couple of years ago, you know, you can now, again, from a single device access, you know, 10 million books, and again, for a monthly membership. Right, so the examples go on and on, right? How important is it for you to own something versus being able to just access it? Right, with your devices today, you can access any of this stuff. You don't need to buy this anymore. And then you think of some of the other more traditional, you know, even older industries, right? TV, and you got Netflix, Uber, with the automobile industry, right? Accommodation provider and Airbnb. So a lot of these traditional industries on the left are being disrupted by new companies on the right. I love, you know, I've been using Uber for 2 years. You know, big fan of Uber. I know Uber's here in Taiwan as well. And it's amazing, right? The average, I think, you know, more than 1 million rides a day now, globally. So, which makes them the world's largest taxi company, right? Or car ride share company. The world's largest taxi company, and they own no vehicles. Right? Most of these, you know, their drivers are driving their own cars, or they're leasing, you know, most of them are driving their own cars. They will be sitting in the car park and not used, you know, it weren't being used. Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, no real estate. They don't own any property. They're all individual users who are renting out their apartments, renting out their houses. YouTube to some extent. Facebook, world's largest media content provider. They own, you know, they don't own any of the content. All the content is user generated. Where all of the content on Facebook is uploaded by the users. You know, what they have for lunch, their dogs doing, you know, everything, where they're going, everything that's on Facebook is created by the users. Facebook doesn't actually, you know, create any of that content. And Alibaba, you know, world retailer, and they own no. So the list goes on. I could go on for days about many of these companies. You know, how they disrupted very traditional industry, you know, with computational thinking, with technology. So this Generation Z, right, the school, the universities, they'll pay a premium for access because it's convenient. Right? One device, anywhere, I can access any music, my book, my videos, my photos. You know, I don't have to own. Let's talk about the future. You know, so how do we prepare them for that future? You know, we know it's coming. So, you know, I have a different version of what I showed earlier. The Economist Group, they ran a survey of the Fortune 500 CEOs. Very similar, you know, critical skills that what CEOs are looking for when hiring job applicants. And it's amazing when you look at the you know, the top three there, I guess. You know, problem solving, teamwork, communications, critical thinking, right? These are all skills that employers are hiring for, you know, they're looking for. You know, so when it comes to education, how do we plan for this? How do we accommodate matching the skills that they need for the future? This idea that we're always in search mode, right? We're constantly looking for something, we're constantly searching for more information. And it's true, right? You go on the internet today, you can find anything that you want, and you're always looking for something. What does this mean, right? Why does technology make such a big difference? Because you're getting to see applications like these, right? Photomat, if you haven't seen this app, you know, this app, again, you have a problem, you put the app, you know, your smartphone over it and gives you the answer. Brilliant, right? You don't even have to do math anymore. But technologies like these are becoming more and more commonplace. Right, there's always an app for that. You know, you hear the phrase, there's an app for everything now. You know, we've got applications now that can see, hear, and understand, you know, you based on where you are. Right, it can, for example, if you have a camera, you take a picture, it can tell you there's a glacier. You know, it can do real-time translation into different languages. right? So more and more of the technology and the applications that we see are going in that direction, where it gives you information even before you ask for it. So are you ready for this? You know, when we think about some of the technologies that are coming, and at Google, we've got a few that we've started to invest in heavily, which I'll talk about in a second. Skybox, you know, is a satellite company that Google acquired a couple of years ago. And what this does is we're launching our own satellites into space. And, you know, the technology will allow us to see real-time video on our phone. So, you know, you want to see something that's happening in another part of the world in real time. We're gonna be able to see that pretty soon. Right, we're getting there. Boston Dynamics is a robotics company, so they make human-like robots that can, you know, go into, you know, places that are not convenient, you know, for humans to go to, like war zones, you know, extreme climates, going to space, and so forth. And then DeepMind. DeepMind is a artificial intelligence company that, again, we acquired. I want to show this video. If you go to the deepmind.com, their website, their mission on their website actually says to solve intelligence. To solve intelligence. Pretty cool, right? Pretty crazy at the same time. You think about, you know, what the challenges are with solving intelligence around neuroscience and artificial intelligence. Anybody play the game Go? Anybody play this game? Go. If you do or you've tried playing it, you know it's a very complex game, right? It's not a very easy game. It's not like chess. People say chess is easy until you play Go. And what DeepMind, you know, the company they started to do was, can we teach a computer to play Go? And they developed a program called AlphaGo to challenge human players in Go. Right, in the past, you see, I think IBM came up with the Deep Blue, right, to take on the Kasparov in chess. And this game, you know, being more complex, the company decided to challenge human players in Go. So let me just play this video.
Games are kind of microcosm of the outside world. That's why games were invented. That's why humans find it fun to play. There's a rich history of computer tackling board games. It started with games like backgammon, drafts, and then finally there was Deep Blue in 97 that beat Kasparov in chess, which was obviously a huge watershed moment for game AI. Since then, the really big remaining sort of holy grail, if you like, has been Go. In chess, the number of possible moves is about 20 for the average position. In Go, it's about 200. Another way of viewing the complexity of Go is that the number of possible configurations of the board is more than the number of atoms in the universe. If you ask a great Go player why they played a particular move, sometimes they'll just tell you it felt right. So one way you can think of it is that Go is a much more intuitive game, whereas chess is a much more logic-based game. The AlphaGo is our program to actually try and crack Go. We played the European champion Fan Wei in a 5-game match. We have an estimate of how strong a program is. Of course, you never know. When you play a human player, they do all sorts of very interesting creative things that your programs don't necessarily do. So there's always an unknown.
When we play the first game, I lose.
I think he was a bit stunned after the first game, and I think he was unsure as to whether he hadn't prepared enough or whether the program was really strong.
I think after first game, maybe he don't like fight. He like play slowly. So it's why begin the second game, I fight. Do mistakes sometimes. I think maybe I'm right. It's why for another game I fight all the time. Now it's a good game. But I lose all my game.
AlphaGo won 5-0, which is the first time ever a program has beaten a professional player. The way I see where we are now is that we've beaten the European champion now, and the next step for us is to try and challenge the legendary player Lee Sedol, who you can think of as the Roger Federer of Go. We always used to talk about, well, if we could eventually crack Go and have a program that could beat the world champion, then we must have invented some generic general purpose algorithm. So maybe we're on the cusp of all of that, and we're very excited about it. But it is just one rung on the ladder towards solving artificial intelligence.
Pretty amazing, right? So in April of this year, actually, this video was made at the end of last year. And in April of this year, they did take on Lee Sedol, the world champion in Go, and AlphaGo won 4-1. So now the machine, the computer, has defeated the sort of the world champion in this game. So this is the kind of technology that's coming. So what does that mean for today, right? What does it mean for all of us when we go back, into your classroom, into your schools, into your classrooms? How do you bring that back into the world that we live in today? We see, technology everywhere, right? Sort of learning takes place anywhere, anytime, on any device now. You walk into, you walk out and you see in public, people are constantly on their devices. This is me last night. I was walking around my hotel, 9:30 p.m. This is near ATT for Fun. I don't know if people know that area, that walkway. I was like, why are there so many people at 9:30 p.m. at night? Most of the shops are closed already. Anybody want to guess what do you think they're doing? Catching Pokemon, right? It's ridiculous. And I was like, I went to look on everyone's screen, and everyone's like swiping right to catch the Pokemon. It's amazing. It's amazing, with technology, you see people getting out, they're being active. I saw this joke online. That a lot of people like myself who are very frustrated with people that play Pokemon all the time. If you wanna chase wild little creatures all day, try parenting. So those of you who have your own kids, Pokemon Go is like catching your own kids all the time. This is my daughter. This is my daughter when she was 4, so about a year ago. So that's Emma. Emma, the story here is you can see the things at the bottom there. It was Mother's Day in Australia, and she wanted to make her mom, my wife, a Mother's Day present. And as a 4-year-old, she didn't know what mom would want, right? So she went around the house and she found some of the things that she thinks mom would like, right? So obviously you can see there's an existing DVD that we already own. There's a flower that's in the house, a picture of herself. She made a card, right, Mama? So she made a card, and then she, and a hairband, a hair clip, or whatever. And so she asked me, say, Daddy, how do I wrap this, right? How do I make this into a present? How do I wrap this into a present? And I was like, I don't know how to wrap. When you go to department shopping malls, they always wrap the presents for you and you buy them sometimes. And they have this way of making the nice bags, where you can just put the things inside so they can make the wrapping bag. So I'm like, why don't we make a wrapping bag? And then she asked me, do you know how to do it? I said, I don't. So what do you think Emma did? Anybody want to guess? What do you think? How do you think Emma solved this problem? She went to YouTube. Right? So she went to YouTube and she put, how to make a wrapping present bag. I mean, I typed it out for her because she didn't know how to type. But she put that in, and then she watched a video, 3 minutes, and then she made it. Right? So that whole process took about 10 minutes, right? 3 minutes to watch the video, 5 minutes to negotiate the tape and the paper, and then she wrapped it. Right? And she made a bag. And that's the generation that's coming into the world today, right? This idea that I see, every moment being a teachable moment. That was a teachable moment for Emma, where I could show her, with real life things, how to use technology to help bridge that gap. New Media Consortium is an education think tank that we work with, and they publish what are some of the big education trends that are coming. And they have a new K-12 version, so kindergarten 12 version for 2016 that they're about to put out, I think, in the coming weeks. But anyway, the early preview, if you want to get a link of this, was they look at what are some of the things that are coming in the industry that are popular, right? In that 1 year or less time frame, you have things like shifting from consumers to creators, rise of code, and I'll go through this in detail in my following slides. And then they looked at 2 to 3 years, and they looked at 4 to 5 years, right? So what are some of the key education technology trends that are coming in the next 1 to 5 years. So let's start with the first. Right, this idea of shifting from consumers to creators. Very often, a lot of technology today is just about consumption. Right, I'm looking at my iPad, I'm reading, I'm watching. It's very one way. Right, as a student, I'm just it's just absorbing. I'm just consuming the information. I'm not actually creating anything. I'm not making anything. And more of what we're seeing in education is heading towards the creation and the making, right? Creating content, right? Encouraging creativity. How do we use technology to encourage creativity? Right? What are some of the challenges that we have where it doesn't become one way and becomes two way? I'm building apps. I'm using Arduino. I'm using YouTube. I'm uploading a video to YouTube, and then people are giving me information. But how do I create more content and I can share that with the rest of the world? The second area around rise of coding as a literacy. Right, you heard Federico talk about Arduino and the platform there. It's the same, right? We work with you see products like Scratch, like Blockly, right? Block-based programming, teaching kids how to do this at a young age. Why is this stuff important? And it's not about creating the next generation of computer scientists, but it's really giving them different problem sets to analyze and to interpret. We're seeing more and more increased collaboration. More and more of the world, right? Earlier we talked about what are the key critical skills that are going to be needed in education. Collaboration is definitely one of them. In any workplace, right? Whether it's in a commercial or even as teachers, I'm sure many of you don't work alone. Nobody works alone in the corporate in the workplace. You're always working with someone else. But yet, as students, sometimes we always encourage them to study alone, or to take exams alone. Why is that? We test them, individually. So more and more of the world's heading towards that collaborative nature. We're going to see new models of learning, right? You hear a lot of these phrases that are thrown around in education technology, problem-based learning, flipped classroom, blended learning. Right? These are all things that you hear are coming into classrooms, modern classrooms around the world today. And so, we see things like that, right? Learning in virtual reality. Right, VR is probably one of the hottest topics. If you look at the agenda, for this conference, you see there's a lot of gaming, there's a lot of virtual reality. You walk into the exhibition halls, the same thing, right? This is going to change the way that people think about augmented reality and virtual reality and how it can infuse and come into the classroom. I want to show this video. This is Google Expedition. So we launched a VR product called Expeditions, and it's a free web-based app that you can download. But really to look at how can kids use technology to bring them to places that they can't go to. So how do we create virtual field trips? Right, instead of bringing your class for a field trip outside, how do we bring the field trip into the classroom? So I want to show this video talking about Google Expeditions.
You could pick anywhere in the world that you want to go. Where would you want to go?
I would like to go to the moon.
Thailand, Asia, India,
Nigeria, my homeland.
One or maybe all of the 7 wonders of the world. When you explore different places, you have the chance to actually learn something new.
You want to be able to show the kids that there's something outside of your community that you can go to and learn from, and that there's other places you can visit.
All right, so let's do our objective and we'll talk about the lesson for today.
We're going to take a field trip to Verona, Italy to see the place where Romeo and Juliet lived.
I'm going to take you on this field trip under the water. Okay, you guys ready? Pick up your devices
and look in your cardboard.
What is that?
I see a shark.
Whoa!
It allowed us to go somewhere we wouldn't normally be able to go.
Are we in China?
This is the Great Wall of China.
We got to see the place itself so we could actually understand what she was talking about.
How long would it take to walk the length of the Great Wall of China? so much more enriching than just showing them a picture or just having them read about it.
This device can actually make us go to places that we've never been before.
It brings the lesson to you. You have to see it for yourself to believe it.
There's so much other places to see, so you know that it's never going to end.
So how do we use technology like that, right? That and bring that into the classroom. In the 3 to 4 year time frame, in the NMC report, it talks about redesigning learning spaces. Right, earlier I started off my presentation today talking about traditional classrooms and how they're organized. Everyone's facing the front, listening to the teacher as the focal point of the classroom. Look at this picture here. What a radical idea, right? Getting students to face one another. How crazy is that? But it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, think of most of the time if you're focused on collaboration, you're focused on problem solving, getting kids to work with one another. Why can't we get them to face one another? And this is just one example. The different ways that you can organize this, right? More and more classrooms are being retrofitted, to allow for interactive learning, for group-based, project-based learning. I think this is really important because we got to move away from the teacher being the focal point of the class of the lesson and allowing students to be that focal point. What will learning look like if this was the classroom? So the rise of maker spaces, right? A lot of schools now are moving to a world where they have dedicated areas allowing kids to use coding, programming, Arduino, 3D printing, using their hands, right? What would learning look like if this was a classroom instead of tables and chairs? How would they learn? How would they solve problems? How would they, work together? And then last but not least, rethinking how schools work. This is a picture from an article I put from the not too long ago. I think the Finland Ministry of Education, they sort of announced that they're doing away with traditional subjects. Right? They're moving away from teaching math and history and science and geography. Right? Instead of teaching every class by subject, they're moving to teaching by topic. So for example, today we're going to talk about World War II. Right? And in that topic of World War II, we can talk about the history of World War II. We can talk about the geography of where it happened. We can talk about, the numbers and so the different disciplines that you can teach within each topic. Right, and the teachers have to be equipped to be able to teach across all the different subject areas, and students, become more complete and more holistic when they look at some of these topics. Anybody know who this guy is? Jack Ma. Jack Ma, fantastic story. Those of you who followed Jack's career or read about his story of how he's come out, he was interviewed at the World Economic Forum in Davos, I think it was last year. And the reporter was asking him, what's the secret to your success? What's the secret of Alibaba's success? And Jack, went on and he said, oh, actually the biggest secret was failure. He talked about failure, which is not very common, right? Multi-billionaire CEO, talking about failure. So he talked about, when he was young, he applied to get a job at KFC. There were 14 people that applied and only 13 people got in. And he was the only one that didn't get the job at KFC. Jack Ma, right? He talked about, he applied to get into Harvard 3 times. 3 times. Right? Twice as an undergraduate student, once as a graduate, MBA, I'm assuming. 3 times he applied, 3 times he got rejected. And I think during the forum when he was interviewed, there was a Harvard professor sitting in the front row that said, we'll take you now. But he never gave up, right? He never gave up. He kept going. And obviously, we saw, Alibaba, went public. He kept on with his dream. And, his success was really about his persistence. So this idea of failing, right? Really, as he talks about, is that first attempt in learning. Even though he's failed so many times, he continued to push on and learn throughout that process. One of my favorite TED Talks is by this lady, Professor Angela Duckworth from University of Pennsylvania, and she talks about, it was cut off here, the key to success. She talks about what is the key to success, and she went to interview a lot of Ivy League university top graduates. She went to West Point, which is the military academy in the US, and interviewed their top graduates. She interviewed spelling bee champions. So a lot of top students she went to interview, trying to understand what is their key to their success. And it wasn't about how high their GPA was. It wasn't about what background they came from, how much money they had. Right? The key success, she boiled down to this thing called grit. Right? Grit, which is that persistence, right? To keep trying, to keep going, right? Never giving up. Great video to watch again. If you want to look at this. If you ever have the opportunity to visit Facebook, Facebook is one of the obviously tech powerhouses now. Around Facebook they'll have this poster pasted around the office. Right? Nothing at Facebook is someone else's problem. If you find a problem, don't tell me the problem. Go solve the problem. Right? So how do you build this culture of problem solving at your school? Right? If a student comes up to you asking a question, how do you flip it around such that they are empowered to solve the problem and find out the answer? 5 more slides and then I'll wrap up. At Google, we have a team called Google X that looks at how do we solve big problems. So Google X, I'll show some of the projects that we've done. But the intersection of these 3 areas, right? What is the huge problem that we want to solve? I'm talking about real world problems that we want to solve with technology. What is the breakthrough technology we want to introduce? So we don't want to just use existing technology. We want to introduce brand new, ways of doing things. And then how do we bring this into the marketplace, right? With that radical solution. So some of our Google X projects that we've done over the last few years that have now been announced publicly are some of these, right? Google X, Google Fiber, which is, what would you do if you have the world's fastest internet? And this was launched 5 years ago, and putting in 1 gigabyte, 1 GB connections into homes, private homes. Asking consumers, what would you do if you don't have to wait for things to buffer, to load, right? What would you do with that technology or schools? On the bottom left there, the self-driving car. More than 1 million people die every year globally due to car accidents. More than 1 million people die every year due to car accidents. And that's just die, right? And then you got, I think, something like 15 million, get injured. So you see a lot of, and most of this, more than 90% are caused by human error. Right? Human making mistakes, right? Maybe a human fell asleep, maybe they're texting, maybe they're on the phone, or maybe they're just slow to react. Right? So a lot of traffic accidents are caused by human error. What if we could develop technology that can help reduce the number of deaths? I mean, that's a pretty good problem to solve. And so they come out with the self-driving car initiative, which has now, if you go to California, you see a lot of self-driving cars around. And many of them now are autonomous, so they don't even have a steering wheel, which is quite scary sometimes. But the technology is there, and it allows it doesn't just save lives, right? It allows people that are blind, people that are physically disabled, to be able to access and use vehicles. Project Loon, which is the high-powered balloons that we launched into the Earth's stratosphere. So above where planes fly, we put these balloons in the sky, and they can beam Wi-Fi signals down to the area below them. And so we launched this in Christchurch in New Zealand when they had the earthquake. Right? After that, the earthquake, usually, all your communications towers are wiped out and everyone's trying to get online and connect and so forth. So, we're able to provide Wi-Fi, to areas after they've been wiped out. And then Project Wing, on the bottom right there, which is using drones to provide delivery to places that are not easily accessible by car. So some of these are, when they were launched, there was no, it was an experiment. They were all experiments. There was no hope of monetizing, making money from any of this stuff. And today, I don't think we've monetized any of these things. So these were all experiments. We have a team within that also called the Life Sciences Division. And some of these projects, again, looking at how do we use technology to support and aid medical-related, aging-related diseases, right? Like Parkinson's and diabetics. And so we see sort of that idea of 10x thinking. How do you aim? How do you create a culture of solving and teaching aim, for the moon or for the stars, and really, really improve, tremendously, and not just, have that 10-20% increment. I want to end off with one final video. Talking about one of my favorite quotes by Einstein, and this is an Albert Einstein quote, and apologies, it keeps getting cut off. We cannot solve the same thinking we used when we created them. Right? Many of you are educators in this room, and hopefully you're still not teaching the same way that you going through school. Look at new ways of solving problems. Look at new ways of introducing ideas as well. Do we have time for one more video? So I wanna show this. So this is the evolution of Google and some of the technology that we're seeing over the last, I guess over the last 18 years. So Google is 18 years old as a company this year.
When we were trying to name Google, we actually went through thousands.
The name of the company has now become its own verb in the dictionary.
Let's Google it.
You can Google it.
Work the Google on the internet machine.
6 simple letters on a plain white page.
Being able to do searches in any language about any country.
When you're putting in a question, they'd finish your question for you.
We have been working on organizing the world's information.
Our goal is to digitize all the books.
Today, Google announced Gmail. Email for everyone, for free.
Google is mapping the entire world to make it more accessible to people everywhere.
Google is jumping into the mobile market.
Android was built as an open platform for everyone to use and build on.
This is Chrome. It's a faster, safer browser for the open web.
Google is unveiling what they call the knowledge graph.
We needed to understand the world the way you and I do, as objects and relationships between objects.
Today, Google got another useful feature with Google Now.
We are providing you with answers before you've even asked for them.
One of my favorite cards is the one that shows traffic data for your commute to and from work.
Think about how far Google has evolved from the 10 blue links.
We asked ourselves, how can we assist you right when you need it?
Okay, Google, call the Walker Art Center.
It's not just desktops, phones, and laptops anymore.
Okay, Google. 유진이한테 5분 늦는다고 문자 보내줘.
It's watches with displays, car consoles with displays.
Okay, Google. Let's go to the aquarium.
How can we help you get things done in as few steps as possible?
Okay, Google.
Okay, Google. Show me my photos of Lucas with a pumpkin.
But we have to remember, we have a long way to go.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
So we have a long way to go, but we can sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel. I always say, there are solutions even to the hardest problems. I showed the video of the Rubik's Cube earlier, and if you give up, you can, there are always ways to solve some of the most challenging problems in the world. With that, thank you very much.
谢谢 Mr. Suan Yeo 为我们带来相当